Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Leadership Brief. These are 3 to 5 minute video shorts with some tips and practices that leaders may find useful during times of disruption. My name is Rich Fernandez. I'm the CEO of the SIYLI Leadership Institute. We started at Google, and today we exist to offer mindfulness and emotional intelligence and resilience training to leaders and organizations around the world. And I'm really excited today to welcome our special guest. This is a friend and a collaborator and a thought leader in the space of wellness and mindfulness. So this is my friend Golbie Kamarei, who works currently at Kamarei Advisors. We're advising on human resources strategy and wellness strategy, was formerly the head of people at Culture Amp, and for many years before that worked at BlackRock, where she really spearheaded the mindfulness and meditation program in that company. It extended globally to over 1,500 employees, very successful at scaling these types of programs. And I'm just so happy to welcome you today, Golbie. So please welcome and share some tips of leadership with us on leading through disruption. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Rich. I really appreciate being here. What I'm going to share today is a model that I use to help folks navigate through disruption, through crisis, as well as some tips for self-leadership and for other leadership in each of the various scenarios. Share my screen. All right, so when we're leading in massive disruption, we have to recognize that there's an external reality. On one extreme, there's chaos, and on another extreme, there's stability. And there can be chaos can be characterized as danger, unpredictable conditions, scarce resources, broken routines, strained relationships. And so many of us, when it came to the pandemic or other crises, we experienced these things. On the flip side, there is safety and predictability, resources, routines, boundaries. And all of these things happen wherever you fall on the spectrum on the external side of our experience. But there's also an internal reality. And that can also range from chaos to stability, characterized as in chaos with stress responses. You might have negative emotions that are strong, scarcity mentality, triggers, or trauma. When things are a little bit more stable on the inside, you have a more regulated nervous system. You might have neutral or positive emotions, and you may have more of an abundance mentality. Now, this map is helpful because no matter what's happening on the external world or in the internal world, you can plot yourself and see where you are. If your external world and your internal world are both in chaos, and I'm using chaos, it's an extreme term, but I tend to mean that at the extreme side with unpredictability and lack of stability, I call this survival state. Sometimes you are just getting through the day. When the external world is in chaos, but your internal world is a little bit more grounded and stable, and you're not identifying or triggered by your external world, I call this the service phase. When your external world is a bit more stable, but you are still going through some stuff internally in your thoughts and your feelings, things people might not see, I call that growth opportunity stage. And the last one, when the external world's stable, the internal world feels stable, that's the build phase. Now we rotate through these phases many times in a life for sure, but maybe in a month, in a week, sometimes it feels like in a day. There are certain things you can do to help lead yourself and to lead others, depending on what phase you're in. If you're in survival phase, the idea of leading self sometimes is just to remember to breathe. And the phrase, "this too shall pass," is something that I very much like. It's applicable to all things in all phases, but sometimes you're just getting through the day and that's okay. That's all you need to do in order to lead and manage yourself. Now, if you're leading others or organizations and you're feeling internal chaos, the world is in chaos or in disruption, this is often a time when communication breaks down. So it's really important to share your intention when communicating. My intention with this meeting is to communicate X, Y, and Z. My intention is to show support. Because that way, if what you say lands poorly because that person's on edge or you're on edge, at least you know that why you were showing up and you can repair quickly and move on. It's also a really important time if you're leading others to build a support network. It might be your boss, it might be your peers, it might be a coach, it might be your friends and neighbors, but people with whom you feel safe that you can articulate what's going on. Because leading, depending on how big of a leadership or how visible of a leadership role you have, can be hard if you're trying to also maintain self and do it authentically. Often what leaders do is they'll disassociate and they'll compartmentalize parts of themselves, and that's fine in the short period of time. That's what gets you through survival, but that's not normally a sustainable and healthy way of being. Another thing that's important in this phase, and I'm focusing on this first because some people are still really acutely in this phase, is scenario planning. Just as you would scenario plan in a business, you scenario plan in how you're going to lead, how you're going to lead. If something's going to happen, you go, okay, well, I'm going to do A. If that happens, I'll do B. Now, if your external world's in chaos, but you're feeling a bit more calm and grounded and perspective, this is where you can be of service. So the question in terms of, I think that's valuable in this phase is, how do I lead myself? And because you're calm and the world is in chaos, you might ask, what meaning am I giving this? Because you're clearly giving your external conditions a meaning that's allowing you to stay in a grounded state. If you're leading others and organizations at this time, a really important way that you can be of service is sometimes just to bear witness, especially if the others are in survival. They might not know to ask for it, but it's something you can do. It's also just called listening. This is a good time if you have the wherewithal and the strength and the energy to establish routines and structure and create clarity and certainty where there is none. And one of the questions I always try and end my meetings with is, how can I support you personally and professionally? Now, let's say the world around you, the external conditions aren't that chaotic, aren't that disrupted, and a little bit more stable, but you're still feeling triggered or strong emotions or unsettled. The question I love to ask here for myself more than anything is, okay, what can I learn here? Because clearly things seem stable in the outside world, but there's something going on inside. What can I learn about the meaning I'm giving something, or how I'm being perceived, or how I'm perceiving that person? This is an amazing opportunity for growth. If you're in this phase where you're not feeling completely strong in who you are because there's a little bit of chaos internally, but the outside world is kind of chugging along, this is an amazing opportunity if you're leading an organization or others to give them responsibility, create opportunities, delegate, let them step up while you go and take care of yourself. That way you don't worry about disassociating or decompartmentalizing, or compartmentalizing parts of you that really do need your attention. And finally, if you're in the build stage where it's hunky-dory outside, it's hunky-dory inside, you can ask the questions, okay, what do I stand for? What makes me come alive? The questions that a lot of meditators like to ask, who am I really? And if you're in this phase and you're leading, this is a good time to count your blessings, a great time to build healthy habits that will get you through a sudden dip into the survival phase, to get curious, to experiment, to push boundaries. It's worth, again, reminding yourself and remembering that you're going to go through a number of these different phases at any time, and it's okay. None of them are wrong, and they're all an amazing opportunity for you to learn about yourself and learn how to be there for other people. I really appreciate the SIYLI community. It's one of my favorites, and I'm looking forward to hopefully spending more time with you all in the future. Back to you, Rich.
Thank you so much, Golbie. That is incredibly valuable and insightful. So thank you for being with us today. And the good news is Golbie will be back with us on a more extended format. We'll be hosting her for a webinar at the end of June, on June 25th. So please join us for that. You can find it on our website and our newsletter. So thank you again for joining us today, Golbie. And thank you everyone for being here for this leadership brief. We'll see you again soon.